My wife announced while setting up the nursery. After this baby arrives, I'm done with you. Child support will handle everything. She thought I was downstairs. I was in the doorway recording her. When I played it for her parents at Sunday dinner, I recorded her face too. I'm Wesley Cambridge, 34, a financial advisor here in Sacramento. I've been married to Melissa for 4 years. She's currently 8 months pregnant with what I thought was our miracle baby after some fertility struggles. I say thought because after what I overheard last week, I don't know what to believe anymore. Let me back up. Melissa and I met through mutual friends at a New Year's party about 6 years ago. She was charming, ambitious, beautiful. I was a decent guy with a stable practice in financial advisory services. Nothing flashy, but I do well. Make around $125,000 a year. Own my house outright. Inherited the down payment from my grandmother before we got married. Paid it off early with smart investing. Important detail. I've got solid retirement accounts and savings. The house is worth about $580,000 now. Not bad for Sacramento. My grandmother left me $85,000 when she passed 8 years ago. I used it as a down payment and aggressively paid down the mortgage using investment gains from managing my own portfolio. By the time Melissa and I got engaged, the house was mine, free and clear. She moved in after a year of dating. We got married 3 years after that. Things were good. At least I thought they were good. We did some renovations after the wedding, updated the kitchen with granite countertops she insisted on, stainless appliances, finished the basement into a home office for me. She had strong opinions about everything, wanted the best of everything. I remember feeling like we were spending more than I was comfortable with, but I figured that's what couples do when they're building a life together. Looking back, there were signs. She asked a lot of questions about my finances early on. How much was the house worth? What were my retirement contributions? Did I have life insurance? I thought she was being practical, planning for our future. She showed interest in my work, asked about my clients, wanted to understand the investment strategies I recommended. I was flattered by her attention. About 10 months ago, we started trying for a baby. It wasn't happening immediately. We did some tests, saw a specialist. Turns out Melissa had some fertility issues that made conception difficult, but not impossible. We were both disappointed, but committed to trying. She wanted a baby more than anything. Said it was her dream to be a mother, that having a family would complete her life. The fertility treatments weren't cheap. Insurance covered some of it, but we spent about $15,000 out of pocket over those months. Melissa handled most of the appointments, the scheduling, the emotional roller coaster. I supported her however I could, adjusted my work schedule for clinic visits, held her when the tests came back negative month after month. 4 months ago, we found out she was pregnant. I actually cried, tears of joy. I thought this was the beginning of the best chapter of our lives. Started reading parenting books, researching college savings plans, updating my life insurance beneficiaries. You know, responsible dad stuff. Increased my policy to $750,000. Made sure Melissa and the baby would be set if anything happened to me. We started setting up the nursery immediately. Melissa had it all planned out. Soft yellow walls since we didn't know the gender, white furniture, expensive everything. The crib alone cost $800. I questioned some of the spending, but she said she wanted our baby to have the best. How do you argue with that? Last Saturday, I was supposed to be at the office catching up on client reports. Had a deadline Monday morning for a quarterly review presentation. But I forgot my laptop on the kitchen counter. Classic move. Drove 15 minutes to the office, realized it, drove back home. When I came in through the garage, I could hear her upstairs in the nursery. We'd just finished painting it the week before, and I knew she was up there arranging furniture, hanging pictures. I was proud of that room, proud of what we were building together. I started walking up the stairs to let her know I was back. That's when I heard her voice. She was on the phone with someone, speakerphone loud enough that I could hear both sides of the conversation clearly from the hallway. "So, you're really going through with it?" It was Jessica Parks, her best friend's voice. "Why wouldn't I?" my wife responded. "This was always the plan." I stopped on the stairs. "Always the plan? What plan?" I don't know. 4 years is a long time. Don't you feel anything for him?" Melissa actually laughed. "Wesley's fine. He's a good provider. But, come on, You've seen him. He's so boring. Once this baby comes, I'm done. Child support from his salary, plus whatever I get in the divorce, I'll be set. I can finally start actually living my life. I stopped breathing. I swear my heart stopped for a full 5 seconds. I gripped the banister so hard my knuckles went white. "What about the house?" Jessica asked. "He said it's paid off." That's the tricky part. It was his before we married, so I probably can't get it. But 4 years of marriage, a baby, California spousal support laws, I'll get something. My attorney already looked into it. Her attorney. She already had an attorney. While I was updating life insurance policies to protect her, she was consulting lawyers about how to leave me. And he has no idea? Please. The man thinks I hung the moon. He's so grateful to have me. He'd never suspect anything. He actually thinks I love him. It's kinda sad, honestly. That's when I pulled out my phone. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped it, but I hit record. I stood there in that hallway for another 6 minutes, recording every word. She talked about how she'd been playing the long game since before we got married, how she knew I had assets and property, how the baby was leverage for a better divorce settlement, how she planned to file when the baby was about 6 months old because courts favor new mothers. "The timing has to be perfect," she said. 6 months gives me enough time to establish myself as the primary caregiver, but not so long that I get comfortable and lose motivation. Plus, by then, I'll have recovered from delivery, can start working again if I need to show income for the proceedings. Jessica's voice. "What about his retirement accounts? He's always talking about his investment portfolio. Anything he earned before marriage is protected. But 4 years of contributions, growth, bonuses, that's community property. My lawyer thinks we're looking at maybe $75,000 from savings and retirement contributions, plus spousal support for at least a year, maybe 2. California's generous that way. $75,000. She'd calculated it down to the last penny. I'd been putting away about $18,000 a year between retirement contributions and cash savings. 4 years of that, plus some investment growth, she was probably right. The money I'd worked so hard to save, thinking about our future, our family's security. And child support, based on his income, probably around $650 a month, for 18 years. That's over $350,000 total. Plus, I keep the baby, get to raise her how I want, make all the decisions that matter. She'd said her. We'd decided to wait to find out the gender, wanted it to be a surprise. But apparently Melissa had found out anyway, probably at one of those appointments I couldn't make because of client meetings. You really think you can go through with it? Actually filing, going to court, all of it? Jessica, I've been planning this since month 6 of our marriage. You think I moved in with him, married him, went through fertility treatments because I was madly in love? He's a means to an end, a very profitable end. Month 6. 6 months into our marriage, while I was still getting used to sharing a bed, sharing a life, she was already planning her exit strategy. When she finally hung up, I had over 8 minutes of audio, clear as day. Her voice, her words, her plan laid out in excruciating detail. I quietly backed down the stairs, got in my car, and drove around Sacramento for 2 hours just processing. I found myself parked outside our wedding venue, a little garden place in Midtown, where we'd exchanged vows 4 years ago. I'd meant every word I said that day. Looking back, I wondered if she'd meant any of hers. Probably not. Probably calculating the return on investment, even as she walked down the aisle. That night, I acted normal, smiled at dinner, asked about her doctor's appointment that morning, rubbed her belly when she complained about back pain. She was so good at playing the loving wife. If I hadn't heard that conversation, I never would have suspected. She even initiated sex that night, something that had become rare during the pregnancy. I went through the motions, but all I could think about was, he actually thinks I love him. It's kinda sad. Sunday came, and I still hadn't decided what to do with the recording. Part of me wanted to confront her privately, give her a chance to explain, but I kept hearing her voice. "The man thinks I hung the moon. He's so grateful to have me." She was right. If she cried, apologized, promised it was just venting, I probably would have believed her. That's how thoroughly she'd played me. But being a financial advisor teaches you a few things about protecting assets and thinking strategically. I knew California was a no-fault state, which meant her intentions wouldn't matter much legally, but I also knew documentation was everything. Monday morning, I called Charles Hoffman, a family law attorney I'd met through professional networking events. He specialized in high-asset divorces, dealt with a lot of business owners and professionals. I played him the recording over our phone consultation. "This is helpful for narrative purposes," he said after listening. "But I have to be honest with you. California doesn't really care about motive. What matters is asset division, and soon custody and support. The court's not going to punish her for being mercenary." That was a gut punch, but Charles laid out the reality. The house was mine, premarital property, never added her name, never used community funds for mortgage payments since it was paid off. My retirement accounts from before marriage were protected, but anything I'd earned or saved during our 4 years of marriage was community property. She was entitled to half. "Based on what you're telling me about your income and savings rate," he said, "she's probably looking at about $75,000. The spousal support will depend on the circumstances, but California typically awards it for half the length of the marriage. 2 years, maybe less if she's working. And the baby? If it was mine, and I had no reason to doubt it then, I'd owe child support regardless of her intentions. Charles said it would probably run about $1,650 a month based on my income and standard custody arrangements. The recording protects you from being blindsided," he said. "It won't change the financial outcome, but it protects your reputation and gives us leverage if she tries to paint you as the problem. Document everything from here on out. Every interaction, every conversation, every expense. If this goes sideways, we want to be prepared." I hired him that afternoon, paid his $5,000 retainer, signed the engagement letter. It felt surreal, planning for the end of my marriage while my wife arranged baby furniture upstairs. Sunday dinner at her parents' house is a weekly tradition, has been since we got married. Richard and Gloria Sinclair make a big production of it, and Maman pot roast, mashed potatoes, the whole family gathering. Her younger brother Justin shows up sometimes when he's not working his bartending shifts. This past Sunday, everyone was there, even Dorothy, her 83-year-old grandmother, who still drives herself over from her apartment across town. We were about halfway through the meal. Gloria was talking about the baby shower she was planning for next month, how she'd already ordered decorations and started making a guest list. Richard was asking about my latest client wins, whether the market volatility was affecting my business. Normal family conversation. Justin was telling us about some drama at the restaurant where he works. Dorothy was complaining about her new neighbor's loud music. Then Melissa said something that made my blood boil. "I'm so lucky to have found someone who takes such good care of me. Not every woman gets a husband who works so hard to provide for his family. Wesley's been amazing through this whole pregnancy, handling all the financial stress so I don't have to worry about anything." The audacity, the absolute audacity. Sitting there, 8 months pregnant with our daughter, talking about how grateful she was while planning to divorce me the moment the baby was old enough. I looked around the table, Richard nodding approvingly, Gloria beaming with pride at her daughter's happiness, Dorothy patting my hand and saying I was a good man, Justin raising his beer in a mock toast to responsible husbands. All of them buying into this performance while I sat there knowing the truth. I made a decision. Actually, since we're all together, I wanted to share something with everyone. Melissa looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I recorded something interesting last Saturday. I think your family deserves to hear it." The confusion on her face shifted to something else. Not quite panic, but definitely concern. "Wesley, what are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, connected it to the little Bluetooth speaker I'd brought for sharing baby videos with the family. "Just something I thought everyone should hear directly from you." "Wesley, don't." Her voice had an edge now. "Whatever you think you heard?" I pressed play. The room went dead silent. 8 minutes of my wife's voice explaining how I was a meal ticket, how she never loved me, how the baby was leverage, how she'd already consulted a divorce attorney, how she planned to take me for everything she could get. I watched their faces. Richard's expression went from confused to horrified. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth, stayed there for a full 30 seconds before he slowly put it down. Gloria's jaw actually dropped. She covered her mouth with her napkin, eyes wide. Dorothy, who'd been cutting her pot roast, just stared at the speaker like it was speaking a foreign language. Justin put down his beer and leaned forward, like he needed to get closer to make sure he was hearing correctly. "The timing has to be," Perfect, came Melissa's voice from the recording. 6 months gives me enough time to establish myself as the primary caregiver. That's enough, Melissa said, reaching for my phone. Turn it off. I moved the phone away from her. Let them hear it all. My lawyer thinks we're looking at maybe $75,000 from savings and retirement contributions. Gloria made a sound like she'd been punched. Richard's face was turning red. He actually thinks I love him? It's kind of sad, honestly. That's when Dorothy spoke up. Oh, honey. She was looking at Melissa like she'd never seen her before. Oh, honey, what have you done? The recording continued. Every calculated word, every cold calculation, every dismissive comment about our marriage, our life together, me. When it finally ended, the silence was deafening. You could hear the kitchen clock ticking, Justin's beer bottle condensation dripping onto the tablecloth, someone's stomach growling. Melissa had gone white, then red, then started crying. That's not what it sounds like. I was venting. I was upset. You took it out of context. What context? I asked quietly. Makes child support will handle everything. And he actually thinks I love him. It's sad sound better? Richard stood up slowly. His chair scraped against the hardwood floor. He looked at his daughter like she was a stranger. Is this true? Did you marry this man for his money? Have you been planning to divorce him this whole time? Dad, it's complicated. It's not complicated. His voice exploded across the room. It's simple. Did you or did you not marry Wesley because he had money and a house? Melissa couldn't answer, just kept crying and saying, it's complicated, over and over. Gloria finally found her voice. The baby? You used the baby. No, Melissa said quickly. No, that's not. I wanted the baby. I wanted to be a mother. You wanted leverage, I said. That's what you called her, leverage. Dorothy was shaking her head slowly. I didn't raise you to be this kind of person. Your mother didn't raise you to be this kind of person. Grandma, please, don't please me. That recording, that's not the voice of a woman in love. That's the voice of someone running a con. Dorothy's voice was steady, disappointed. I'm 83 years old, Melissa. I've seen enough of the world to know the difference. Justin hadn't said anything. He was just staring at his sister like he was seeing her for the first time. I stood up. I've already contacted a divorce attorney. I wanted your family to hear this directly before any story gets spun. I thought you deserved the truth. Wesley, wait, Gloria started. There's nothing to wait for, I said. She's been planning this for 3.5 years. While I was updating life insurance policies to protect her, she was consulting lawyers about how to leave me. While I was supporting her through fertility treatments, she was calculating the return on investment. I looked around the table one last time. I'm sorry you had to hear it this way, but I couldn't let her control the narrative anymore. I left. Behind me, I could hear shouting starting. Richard's voice rising, Gloria crying, Melissa trying to explain. I drove home, packed a bag for her, left it on the porch, and changed the locks. The house was mine. She had no legal claim to it. She showed up around 10 that night, mascara running, screaming at my door. Through the ring doorbell, I could see her belly silhouetted against the porch light. 8 months pregnant and homeless because of her own choices. Wesley, please, open the door. I'm carrying your daughter. Your things are on the porch. We can communicate through attorneys going forward. I don't want to talk to attorneys. I want to talk to my husband. You should have thought about that before spending 3.5 years planning how to divorce me and take my money. She banged on the door for 20 minutes before Justin came to pick her up. I watched through the security camera as he helped her into his truck, shaking his head the whole time. The next few weeks were a masterclass in manipulation tactics. Melissa filed a police report claiming emotional abuse throughout our marriage and expressing fear for her safety. The detective who called was professional, asked for my side of the story. I explained the situation, offered to share the recording and my attorney's contact information. Sir, I've heard stranger things, he said. We'll look into it, but based on what you're telling me and the evidence you have, I doubt this goes anywhere. He was right. 2 days later, Charles called to tell me the report had been marked unfounded. The detective had spoken to witnesses from Sunday dinner, listened to the recording, reviewed the timeline. Melissa's attempt to paint me as an abuser had backfired, but she wasn't done. She showed up at my office on a Thursday afternoon, walked right past reception. They knew her, she'd visited before, and came to my desk, visibly pregnant, crying loud enough for half the floor to hear. "Please, Wesley, please just talk to me. I'm carrying your baby. Don't do this to us." Every eye in the office was on us. My colleagues' faces showed confusion, sympathy for her, judgment toward me. The optics were terrible. Pregnant woman crying, cold husband refusing to engage. I kept my voice low and professional. "This isn't the place for this conversation. Contact my attorney if you want to discuss anything. I don't want lawyers involved in our marriage. There is no marriage. There's a divorce proceeding and a custody arrangement to work out." That got some attention from nearby desks. I could feel the whispers starting. "You recorded me without my consent. That's illegal." California is a one-party consent state. I was part of the conversation by being in the house. She eventually left when building security arrived, but the damage was done. I could feel the office gossip machine cranking up. By Monday morning, I'd had 3 clients ask if everything was okay at home, if I needed time off to handle family matters. I decided on transparency. With any client who asked directly, I shared the basics. My wife had married me for financial security, planned to divorce me after the baby was born. I'd discovered her plan and filed first. A few clients were shocked, but most were supportive. One even said he respected that I'd protected my assets and acted strategically. "Shows me you can handle a crisis without making emotional decisions," said Martin Walsh, one of my biggest clients. "That's exactly what I want in someone managing my portfolio." The divorce moved quickly once it got started. Charles was efficient, kept emotions out of it, focused on the numbers. Community property division was straightforward. $75,000 split from 4 years of marriage savings and retirement contributions. Spousal support was minimal, 2 years at $800 per month, since California typically awards support for half the length of the marriage. "She's young, healthy, has a college degree," Charles explained. "Court won't support her indefinitely. She can work." Child support was calculated at $1,650 per month based on standard guidelines. Joint legal custody, but primary physical custody to Melissa. I'd get our daughter every other weekend and 1 evening per week once she was old enough. Our daughter was born 3 weeks ago. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. The delivery was tense. Melissa didn't want me there. But I had legal rights as the father. We barely spoke during the 18 hours of labor. When the nurses put our daughter in my arms, though, nothing else mattered. She has my eyes, Melissa's chin, tiny fingers that grip mine like she was afraid I'd disappear. I named her Isabella Cambridge. Had to fight for that. Melissa wanted something else, but we'd compromised during mediation. The aftermath has been exactly what you'd expect. Melissa's family relationships are shattered. Richard calls me occasionally, apologizes for his daughter's behavior, asks how Isabella is doing. Gloria sends cards but doesn't visit. Too awkward. Dorothy hasn't spoken to Melissa since that Sunday dinner, according to Justin. Melissa's friend network collapsed once the recording spread. Those social media support groups for women going through difficult divorces turned against her pretty quickly when mutual friends shared the audio. Hard to maintain victim status when there's evidence you were running a long con. Professionally, I've recovered better than expected. Being transparent with clients built trust rather than destroying it. My practice has actually grown. Several referrals from people who respected how I handled the situation. The house is quiet now. I've converted what was going to be a guest room into a proper nursery for Isabella's visits. Every other weekend feels both too much and not enough. Too much exposure to Melissa's cold professionalism about custody exchanges. Not enough time with my daughter. We communicate through a co-parenting app now. Everything documented, timestamps, read receipts. Isabella needs more diapers. Pick up at 6 p.m., not 5:30. She had a fever yesterday, gave infant Tylenol. Functional, businesslike, empty of any warmth. But Isabella's healthy, growing, starting to smile. She doesn't know her parents' history, doesn't understand the complicated circumstances of her existence. She's just a baby who needs love, and despite everything, she has it. I still have the recording saved in multiple places, not as a weapon, but as insurance. Someday Isabella will ask why her parents aren't together. When that day comes, I'll have proof of the truth, not whatever story Melissa decides to tell. Some people ask if I regret playing that recording at Sunday dinner. If I should have handled it privately, quietly, without the drama, the answer is no. If I'd confronted her alone, she would have spun a story, promised to change, manipulated me into giving her another chance. By exposing the truth in front of her family, I prevented her from controlling the narrative. My life isn't what I planned at 34. I imagined building a family with someone who loved me. Instead, I'm a divorced father making child support payments to someone who saw me as a business transaction. But I have my daughter. I have my self-respect. I have a career built on trust and competence. Most importantly, I have the truth, and I learned that living with painful truth is infinitely better than building a future on beautiful lies. To anyone who suspects they're being used, document everything, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to protect yourself. The temporary pain of discovery is nothing compared to the lifetime damage of willful blindness.